Welcome to Moss Marketing Mondays, aka the M3 Podcast. Brought to you by Moss Marketing Group, bringing you everything marketing every Monday. Stay tuned for marketing tips and tricks you can use today. The M3 Podcast, marketing knowledge to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Welcome back to the M3 Podcast. This week we have Houston on with us. On again, Dre and Logan. Thank you for joining us this week, Houston.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
So, Houston is a local Kansas City entrepreneur, and most guests we've had on own one business or work with one business. You work with multiples, are involved with a lot of businesses. What are some of those businesses that you're involved with?
Actually, I'm a director of a local security firm, so physical guard services. I'm the managing partner of a local tavern in Briarcliff. I am the president and co-founder of a local nonprofit, and I'm an investor in a local Kansas City knife company.
I feel like we need to be doing a podcast in a tavern.
That would have been cool.
Thoughts? We could do that.
Hey. Now we got connections. So, how long have you been involved with all these different companies that you're within?
This is my 11th year in security, but it's my third year anniversary for the current security firm I'm with as the director.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm director of administration, director of sales. For the bar, we hit our 1 year anniversary this past weekend.
Congratulations.
Congrats. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it was a good one for us. And then the nonprofit, this past spring was year 3 for the nonprofit for us. And then for the knife company, I became an investor this past fall, late fall.
Gotcha.
So this is their first year. We just opened a custom knife shop down on Burlington in North Kansas City. So it's a big deal for these guys.
Good deal.
That's really cool.
Yeah. Security is your longest background. Is that what you're mainly knowledgeable about, or where'd you start with that?
Yeah, security was dumb luck. I actually owned a business painting and detailing cars for dealerships. We would do the turnover for trade-ins. And one winter, business was just slow, and I was like, hey, I'm going to go find something else to do with my time. And I actually applied for a security firm, and they hired me right away, and I spent a week, I think it was, working unarmed, or 2 weeks, and then they're like, hey, you should go armed. I'm like, sure. So
give me a gun, let's go.
Yeah. So ended up showing up for some armed range training and became an armed guard, and that was great. And then at the same time, I had somebody be like, hey, Jackson County is looking for some people on the DOC side. So I was like, okay. So I applied for that, and they hired me right out the gate. And I was like, okay, so now I got 3 jobs. So I own my own business. I work for the Jackson County Detention Center downtown, and then I'm also doing security for a company out of Overland Park.
Sounds like you wear a few hats.
You know what's better than one job? 3 jobs. Did you get into the automotive space straight out of high school?
Yeah, so I actually went to Votech in high school for 2 years, graduated there, moved to Houston, and went to a Votech school there.
Oh, Houston and Houston?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that was the joke.
I wasn't going to say it.
Dude, I worked for the Hilton down there. So every time I'd answer the phone, I'd be like, thanks for calling the Hilton Garden Inn, Houston Northwest. This is Houston. Dude, we get people from Europe that are like, wait, who is this? What are you? Wait, huh? And I'm like, no, my name is Houston. I'm in Houston. I get it. And they're like, oh, that's so cool, man. I'm like, thanks. The Hewlett-Packard campus was right next door to our hotel. So we had these international people flying in all the time, and they would stay with us. And they'd get so confused by the calls.
Like, this guy's just messing with us every day.
Yeah. So I ended up graduating there, and a company out of Chicago hired me to paint cars. My first contract while I was graduating was with Mercedes-Benz of North America. And they gave me a contract, and it was based on my test scores were the highest they had ever seen in North America for the company for college kids coming straight out. And it was really cool because they called me into the office and went over all that, and they offered me a contract like that day. They're like, you're perfect candidate for what we want. I said, okay. I was super excited because in school down there, that's like what everybody shoots for. You're either in the Ford program or you're after Mercedes, but Mercedes is like the higher echelon of where you want to be. And so I took it, and then, you know, I kept getting like homesick, right? I'd moved to Houston by myself, didn't know anybody, had nobody around, no support system. And I kept getting homesick. And then when it came time to like pick, you know, if you're going to continue down this path, where would you want to work? And I'm like, how about Kansas City? And they're like, there's only 2 Mercedes-Benz certified shops in Kansas City, and they're both full, so no way. I'm like, well, what's the closest? They're like, Florida. And I'm like, what?
Sounds pretty awesome.
I don't know if you know what close means, but that was very far away.
So it was like L.A., Florida, and then like New York were like the go-tos. And now in your 30s, you look back and you're like, wow, that probably would have been an awesome move. But, you know, when you're a kid and you're 20 years old and you're like, hey, okay, I'm homesick. I just want to go home. Company out of Chicago heard I may be canceling my contract. And sure enough, Mercedes-Benz let me out without paying I think it was $3,500 I had to pay to get out of the contract. They actually waived it. Again, good part about getting high test scores. They let me out, and this company out of Chicago said, hey, we want to expand cities. You know, come out with us, train for a couple months, and see what happens. So I moved up there and helped them move to Kansas City. And then eventually we parted ways, and that's how I ended up starting my own thing. And I had some dealerships along North Oak, had a few other dealerships just around that were little, and they just didn't like the big paint companies that were around. They're like, hey, we're looking for somebody who could do the detailing and the paint work, not one or the other. And so I was like, yeah, sure, we'll do it. And I started just like a lot of people out of my house. I had a 2-car garage. I would have the driveway just lined with cars. The garage is full.
Neighbors loved you.
Friends would, oh yeah. Friends would stop by and they just watch me paint, and they're like, "Whoa, that's so cool, man! You're painting cars like in your driveway or in the garage, like you're just constantly doing stuff." I'm like, yeah. Turned around, and again, that's how I started getting into security. Was one winter. It was just kind of a harsh winter that we had, and there just wasn't a lot of cars being sold at the time in the winter, and so I got started in the security market.
What was that drive to jump into the entrepreneur side? When you got back to Kansas City, you're like, you know what, I'm not working for someone. I'm going to do my own thing.
Honestly, that started way before that. I mean, when I was a kid, my parents were like, hey, if you want to get anything in life, you need to go earn it. So, I mean, at 10, you know, I'm shoveling driveways anytime there was snow. I'm raking leaves anytime the fall comes, you know, started mowing yards. I mean, by 12, I actually had a set number of houses that I would be at every snow, every fall, every summer to mow. And that was a normal thing for me. By 14, I started working at a Subway that had just been built on Shoto and I-35. And it was brand new back then, and the franchise owners were brand new. Had never owned anything before, and their biggest thing was quality. Everything was quality. Make sure it looks good, take care of the customer, everything. So I was still doing my yard work. I was working at 14, started paying taxes. That was cool. Thanks a lot, government.
He's like, I like the mowing yard thing, collecting cash.
So I started doing that. I was there until I was 16 and a half. And then next thing I know is I left, and I bounced a couple jobs, and I didn't really like fast food. I got on with a restaurant as a bus boy for like a sit-down restaurant. That was actually Jumpin' Catfish back when it was around on Antioch back in the day. Well, and that wasn't enough. So I was like, okay, there's got to be more to do. So Hy-Vee and Gladstone was looking for somebody in the meat department. Actually, they're looking for cashiers. That's why I got hired. Was cashier, stocking, and then the meat department was like, I need a guy that could cut steaks. And they're like, hey, we got this guy Houston, you should talk to him. And he's like, well, how old is he? And at that time, I'm like 18. I just turned 18. He's like, I don't know, that's pretty young. Like, we got knives and saws, and I don't think this is going to work out.
I'm great with sharp objects.
Yeah, I only cut myself like 20 times. It's okay. No,
That's how I got in the knife space.
Yeah. So at that same time, though, when I had turned 16, I started cleaning houses with my aunt. I would clean floors, so like hardwood floors, carpet, concrete. It didn't matter, whatever floors. I just cleaned floors. And so I was doing that. I was working at the restaurant. Then I started at Hy-Vee, and I was still doing yard work. So I had 4 jobs when I was.
You know what's better than 1 job? Not 3 jobs, 4 jobs.
Right. Well, I didn't even add in the mechanic shop. So when I got into Votech, I only had a half day of school. So I actually had more time in the day. So I did part-time at a mechanic shop, too, for a little bit. That didn't last long. 5 jobs during senior year was kind of a lot. You know, I liked girls. I wanted to go out and hang out with friends. Working 5 jobs at the time was not working. Because those back then you actually have to be there, right? You can't be semi-absentee or absentee as a business owner. You have to be there working all those jobs. So anyway, I got down to the last couple jobs, graduated, and right about the time I was graduating in the meat department, every time we'd have people stealing. They'd steal lobster tails, steaks, anything they could get, shove in their purse, their clothes, they'd try to steal. Well, our owner, or the manager of the department would give us like Royals tickets or bonuses when we catch like big things. I mean, I caught somebody stealing $250. They bagged their own cart once and went out the front door with their cart, and we actually caught them. And she went to jail, so the store gave me like a suite tickets for the Royals, which is pretty sweet.
That's how you knew you wanted to be a security guard.
I don't know. I guess
I'm gonna start taking down people at Hy-Vee if I see them stealing. Yeah. I'm like, I want them tickets. I know I don't work here, but I know you're offering sweet tickets around here.
Yeah. So I didn't. So I guess that's whenever I thought it was fun to catch criminals, right? In general, just petty things. And what's funny is I was at an event like 2 months ago, and a guy walks up, and I don't really recognize him. You know, this was 17, 18 years ago. And he walks up to me, and he goes, "Hey, I'm so-and-so." And I said, "Yeah, man, I'm Houston. Nice to meet you." And he goes, "Yeah, I know." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "That's a weird thing to say. Like, did I meet you?" And I'm just not, like, it's not catching at all. Like, I don't know what's happening right now. He goes, "Yeah, do you remember you used to work at Hy-Vee, huh?" And I was like, "Maybe." It's like,
this is a trick question.
Yeah, I was like, "What's going on?" He goes, "You worked at Hy-Vee Gladstone, huh?" I was like, "Yeah, I did." And he was like, "Dude, I was the Pepsi guy that used to hang out with all the time in the aisles because he would stock, and the same guy. Now we're just older, fatter, grayer in general. But back then, you know, he had long dreadlocks, real tall guy, and he was really nice. Always the nicest guy ever. And he was that Pepsi guy. And back then, you know, to be a stock guy doing Pepsi and distributors like that, they always got paid real well. So when you're 18, you're like, man, I need that job here in a few years. And so anyway, I always hung out with him. Great guy. Ran into him at a business event, a breakfast event through Accelerant. And he just happened to sit at my table, and I ran into him. And I was like, "No way." And he's like, "Yeah, man, I remember you all those days." He goes, "Didn't you move to Houston?" I was like, "Yeah." So everything we just talked about, I was like, "Yeah, so here's how I bounced around." He's like, "No way. That's awesome. Well, welcome back."
Always comes full circle.
Yeah. Well, it's just weird. Like in business, you don't know who you're going to run into again.
I don't think people really understand how small the business space is until you get into the business space. That we have it all the time now where some client hits us up and like, "Well, so-and-so told my daughter-in-law, and then we were talking when we were at the lake and everything. Your name came up," and it was just like, they're telling me like a 45-minute story about how our name came up in a conversation. But everyone knows everyone.
Yeah.
Very small world.
Perfect lesson for the young people that like listen to stuff like this. A bunch of guys drinking beer on a couch. You know, hey, if you're going to do anything, don't burn bridges. Like, unless somebody's really toxic that you got to cut loose in life, like, don't burn those bridges because you don't know when you're going to run into them again.
Well, that's what I go out and I sell. I started selling, a few months ago?
Yeah.
A few months ago, and I'll go in, and to date, I've had one individual where I just did not care for. I did not burn the bridge, but I just did not care for that individual. And usually people be like, no. I'm like, that's great. I'm like, if you don't need it right now and you're doing great, perfect. But I'm like, if you're doing great now, you could do better. And I'm like, do you own the area? There, well, no. I'm like, let's make you own the area. And it's just stuff where you never know how someone's great could be selling 5 cars a month. Someone's doing great could be selling 5,000 a month. Never know what someone's great is, but it's something where when someone I'm the first one to where if someone ever came to my door, I'm big on the door-to-door salespeople that come to your neighborhood. I'll always give them time of day. I'm like, you're out hustling.
Even though they don't pay attention, no soliciting signs. But, I mean, I'm going to give them mad props for what they do. Like, those,
hustle.
I've bought magazines at my door that I didn't even keep.
I got a home security system where I'm like, the guy comes in, I'm like, man, would you like a water? He's like, I would love water, man. I'm like, I know you've been told more times than you care to mention. I'm like, here's water. I'm listening to it. I'm like, that's a pretty good sales, dude. And one thing led to another. I'm like, yeah, maybe I do need the $7,000 security system. He's like, for the low price of $80 a month. I was like, that's a deal. And that's how I got suckered into a security system. But girlfriend loves it. She feels safe. It's a win-win.
Yeah. Well, dude, people don't take into consideration kids that are selling stuff. So when I was actually in elementary school, now this is before I realized sales was going to be a thing for me. I would go door to door and hustle the whole neighborhood with all the fundraisers that ever came out. I actually was a top seller in our school twice. So I got to do a limo ride to lunch with a bunch of my friends twice in elementary school alone. I think third and fifth grade or fourth and fifth grade.
You trying to brag right now on everyone else?
No, but you were mentioning like
right
somebody like door to door sales, right? Like that's, you think it's silly, but like we pulled the truck over the other day and stopped at a lemonade stand, like for a little kid. Like we saw a car with flashing lights. There's no shoulder. I'm like, what is this, jackwagon doing in the middle of the road? And we get closer. We're like, oh, he ran across the street to go get this guy's like lemonade. This little boy's like standing there selling it. It says like jiu-jitsu lessons and soccer. Well, it was two brothers and they did shifts. One brother would sell while the other brother took a break, and then they'd switch back again. One was doing jiu-jitsu, one was doing soccer. But it's the same thing. Like those kids are actually out there on the grind trying to raise the money for something they really want to do. That's a huge deal. If their lemonade stand is a success, those guys are going to grind their whole life to make sure everything they do is successful. Whereas if that lemonade stand fails, they may never try again. You don't know.
We're realistically just doing the exact same thing, just at an older age, and not selling lemonade.
This is your lemonade
We
stand.
could get into lemonade. Just a thought.
Now Houston's like, I'm doing like the same thing, but now I have a table set up with like $500 knives.
Right. Anyway, I don't even know what we're talking about.
Yeah,
Lemonade.
just hustling and making business happen.
What's that? And not burning bridges.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
and that crucial like push of business owners, I think, is just something that you notice with people. And we were talking before the podcast even started about the fears that come with people, that they never take that step because of that fear. And it could be as simple as being 8 years old, having a lemonade stand, everyone telling you no, or something not going the way you want, and then it instills that fear in your head for the rest of your life.
Or next thing you own is Minute Maid. Like whatever. I don't know how they got started, but that may have been it.
It could be something so simple like that. And we were talking about how fearful people are of spending a little bit of money on their business. And I think as a business owner, of what I've watched the most of other business owners, is the people that are the most fearful of spending money to increase their business are the ones that never go anywhere. And if it's marketing, if it's buying brochures, if it's hiring that next person, if it's doing whatever that is that the company needs, because a company is a higher being than everyone in it, including the owner. It is something that is running and operating differently, that you are feeding the beast. And the owner is just the one getting to sign the checks to make sure the beast is fed. So you're throwing this money at it all the time. If you see that employees are needing help, then it's spending that money. If you see that it's employees can handle more of a workload, it's spending the money on marketing to give them that workload. It's doing whatever that thing is. And we were talking about how you don't see a Fortune 500 company out there not marketing. You don't see any $1 million+ company out there not marketing. And when we met, you were just like right out the gate, you're like, we need to spend money on marketing. We need to do these things. We need to have video running. We need to have more of a presence. We need to have that's just something that I don't know. I feel like that's a lot of the companies we work with have that growth mindset, and it pushes a company to that next level. I think that's why you're involved in so many companies also. And in that, what kind of different marketing techniques, what kind of different, really just entrepreneurial techniques have you seen people really use and strive and market with?
I mean, marketing needs to come from a lot of different sources. You shouldn't just focus on one piece, right? But just to complement what you said, a lot of times when I talk to people that are like, I can't afford marketing, and I'm like, but you can afford not to market? So what does it cost you if you don't market? Nobody even knows you exist, but you have the greatest thing ever for your city or your area of town or the country or whatever it is, the world, whatever. What does it cost you to not market? They don't think about it like that sometimes because of that fear. But as far as business for me, I mean, originally it started organic, right? Even back to the kid days, knocking on doors, saying hi to people. And I get it. And the day-to-day grind, knocking on doors really sucks. Cold calling sucks. I hate it. It's not my thing. But what I did realize is you can change the way you cold call people. You don't have to legit look up a number and call somebody you don't know that doesn't want to
Straight
talk
out
to
of the
you
Yellow
and just say,
Pages.
hey, what's up? Yeah, you can do the same thing, but in a person-to-person setting. You can do it networking. You can do it at an event. So maybe I could pay for an event. We do it at the bar all the time. We'll jump on social media, and I'll post that we're throwing a certain kind of party, and there's a theme, and it's going to be this date, this time. Usually we try to do it within a week to 2 weeks. We don't really extend an invitation further than that because we don't want people to forget. We want to keep that excitement alive. So we'll shoot for like a week out, week and a half out, and say, hey, we're going to do this party. It's this theme, and get people to show up. But, I mean, that's great. We're going to pay for the marketing. But if we don't do any videos, we don't do any pictures, we don't do anything real exciting, we just talk about it, the odds of us getting people is, maybe we get 20% of our real market that we're trying to capture. So we need to try to find funny pictures or a video or something about the bar staff or show quality of drinks that we're pushing or something has to come out, right? But then you get that person to person where you get to actually meet, shake hands, talk to people. So the networking side has been really strong for me. And that's taken years. That's not overnight. I mean, I remember being so fearful to walk into a room full of guys in suits and introduce myself where I'm like, hi, I'm Houston. And they're like, hey, little guy, like, what's up? And
First time?
yeah, right. So, I mean, there's those groups, but honestly, getting thrown to the wolves like that is great because it teaches you to, like, sink or swim. Like, you got to figure it out. But at the same time, it was at that point when I'm, like, getting thrown into rooms of people. This is before we got into digital marketing, all that, and I'm talking to people. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. What really became cool is, like, just like I'm dressed today, I got jeans and boots on and a company polo. I'm not in a suit. I used to wear suits. I used to wear slacks and dress up nice every day. What I realized, though, is I was putting on kind of a front. I do appreciate someone who dresses in a suit and tie to be professional. That's a way to show somebody that you're respecting them by showing up dressed for them. But at the same time, when you're in sales, there's the other side to that, where if you overdress or you show up in a certain way, you're going to be too salesy, or you're going to come across strong, wrong message. You're not there to be a super salesy person. You're there to try to facilitate someone getting something they need or want or whatever that is. So I'm just showing up as me. This is how you'll catch me walking through Walmart, or if I'm with my girlfriend, it's got to be Target because that's ridiculous. But anyway, like, you'll see me, jeans, boots, maybe a different shirt, but that's just me. So when I go to these places, I'm not there to show up and show off. I'm there to just say, hey, what is it you're needing? What's wrong? What's going on? And I feel like now that I've captured a lot of the networking side and I've realized how to be a salesperson in my own world and be myself, now I'm trying to reach further and use digital marketing and things like that to reach groups that I don't get to shake hands with every day and see. So that's something we're trying to do as well.
The funniest thing on that is the first thing popped in my head is at a place of business today, and I was going over some information with an individual, and he needed to step away, and I had an elder lady come over. She's like, you're a real salesman. I'm like, how do you figure? She's like, you're going over all your stuff you guys do. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I'm not pressuring him in to do anything. I'm like, I just want to lay all the facts out, and then he can make a decision for himself. I'm like, if it's something where you see it being vital for you, then it makes sense. And I'm like, I'm not going to pressure you down a road to do something you don't want to do. I'm like, that's not my goal. And she's like, now that I'm thinking about it, that is exactly how you're saying it. I'm like, I don't want to sound salesman-y at all. That is not my plan. And the way she said it, I was just sitting there, I'm like, she's like, now come to look at it. She's like, I used to do boat sales, and then we went down a whole nother path, learning about her history. I'm like, small world. I'm like, I think you knew my dad.
Yeah.
And that just comes with building value in anything. If you have value in product or service or whatever it is, it makes it 1,000 times easier to sell. And I was kind of laughing when you were talking about, like, going into that room with all these people in suits and everything like that. When I got into sales, I was like tie every day. I was dressed up to the nines. I was like wearing slacks. I looked like a 90s salesperson straight out of a book.
This
like,
is in a rural area.
Yeah, and it was just like, it wasn't the jam of everything. Like, it was everything completely wrong of what I thought it was. But what you realize, and I've realized it very early in life, and I think it takes a lot of people a lot longer until they're 40, 50 years old to realize that room full of all those guys standing in suits, they're real people just like you and I. They watch Netflix just like you and I. You can talk to them about the newest Netflix show that's on. They've probably watched it too. They have a car payment just like you and I. They have a house just like you and I. Like, there's nothing really different than them. They're just a few steps further. I think when you start realizing that and you just talk to them like a normal person, I think some people are just intimidated because they're dressed differently. They think that they have more money. And guess what? Everyone's castle is a different size. Our dad has always told us that. And it can go in a castle being bigger or smaller. And what we realized in the car business, when you would have somebody come in and they're taking on $1,200, $1,300 car payment, those were the easiest people to close. The person that could take on a $1,200, $1,300 car payment had no issue in the world to pay for it. When you had the person coming in looking for a $150 car payment, those were the hardest deals to close because you'd be negotiating over like $5. And that $5 was more to them than $200 was to the person on a $1,300 car payment. And that's what it was just like at that time I like started realizing that, I mean, that both those people are the exact same. And I think they're going out to dinner. They're going to see movies. They're going to do everything that everyone else is doing. So it's, if you just treat people like you want to be treated, treat them as equals. I don't think there's any, I don't ever sit down at a table with anyone and I'm like fearful of meeting with them. I don't care how successful they are, how unsuccessful they are, whatever it is. There's never that fear anymore.
And I think on the flip side of that, whenever you are selling something, whenever you walk in somewhere dressed like yourself and you present yourself as yourself, it gives you some credibility. People know that you know what you're talking about. You know what you're selling. Like, you're not trying to put on the front, like you said. We always talk about, you know, the guy at the dealerships that rolls up in his Porsche wearing a blue suit that knows nothing about the marketing that he's selling. All he cares about is that commission check. Mm-hmm. People can see that, and they know when people just care about the commission or just care about making money, whether they're young, old, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, really, you're just trying to meet somebody where they're at, right? You're not the best thing you can do in business, and it doesn't matter whether you're slinging drinks at a bar or you're selling security services or you're showing up to work for a nonprofit. The best thing you could ever do is under promise and over deliver.
100%.
Don't give them all your bells and whistles. Don't show them every feature you have to offer. Don't. All you really need to talk to them about is like, what is your pain? Like, what are you going through right now? Like, why did you call me today? Or what really sparked your interest in talking about, say, marketing for you guys? You know, because you're in your head and you're going to walk up being like, oh, he's trying to capture 12,000 more people this month. I know that's what he's going to want. And when you just shut up and listen and you ask him, like, why did you take this meeting? And they're like, look, I have 50% white males as my sales volume. I really want to capture more African-American males, or maybe I want to capture more ladies. Like, we're missing the whole market around ladies. And you're over there thinking numbers on people, and that's not at all their target market. And if you would just let them talk, they're going to sell themselves on what they want. Your goal is just to make sure you can facilitate that and make it happen. And that's the biggest thing.
We have marketing companies reaching out to us, asking us what we're doing differently and why we're onboarding accounts just month over month, like really not slowing down at all. And one of my biggest deals is when I go meet with accounts, and I mean, I've met with huge nationwide commercial accounts, things like that. And when I'm sitting down with these people, it's funny because I walked June of last year, I walk into a meeting, didn't know I was walking in this big of a meeting, and there's 15 people sitting around a conference table. There's 20 people on a Zoom call. I thought I had the wrong room. I was like, have to have the wrong room. And they're like, Dane with Moss Marketing Group? I'm like, yeah. And I'm wearing a polo and jeans and boots. And they like look at me, and I'm like, And when I go to sit down with them, they're like, do you have a presentation? I was like, no. And I'm like, have you guys met with other marketing companies? They're like, yeah, we've met with 8 other marketing companies. I'm like, did they all have presentations? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, on any of those presentations, did you see something so crazy unique that one of the other ones didn't have? They're like, no. I'm like, okay.
You're going to remember the guy with no presentation.
But the thing was, I'm like, I don't know what you guys are looking for yet. So how am I supposed to put together this whole presentation that we custom tailor every single account that we have? There's some accounts that need a lot more brand awareness, and they're not lead generated all the time. We have accounts that are looking for a lot of employment that are people directly messaging in all the time. Just the structure of every single account that we have is different. So how are we supposed to put together one presentation that perfectly forms to what your company's looking for? We can't. And any company that says they can are lying. So we come in, and when I'm like, I want to have a meeting first, and then we go through everything that they're looking for. And guess what? When they're talking, they'll tell you where their problem's at. And once you find out what that problem is, if you can solve that one problem, if that's employment, if that's brand awareness, if that's just video creation all the time, that they have an influx of money and they want video running all the time, whatever that problem is that they have in their company, you can fix it. We can get the account every single time. And that's what I think makes us so much different, is actually listening to people when you sit down with a business, where most of the time they're like, this is what we're going to do. That business owner's like, that didn't hit on any of the hot points of what I actually want to get done.
Yeah.
Most of the time, people know what they want. As a salesperson, it's just your job to guide them to the answer that they already know and give them reassurance.
Yeah. Because if you know that, and then I'm sitting there talking with you, and then all of a sudden you hear what my issue is, and you offer everything to fix it, how do you say no?
Yep.
Right. Well, and I mean, you can steamroll a potential client for sure.
Oh, yeah.
One,
Yeah.
you can also drown them in too much information and overwhelm them. And then somebody like me slides in, and I tell them exactly what they want to hear, because all I actually cared about was solving the one problem they want to fix.
Yeah.
And like, okay, cool. You're way simpler. Let's go. And it's like, you may be able to do the same thing and more, but you just ruined it because they don't care about all that. And you just like made it so confusing and just complicated.
It's like, I just need this one thing.
Yeah.
After that, then we'll discuss other stuff.
And that's where you over-deliver. You show up, and all these other bells and whistles start coming out over time. They're like, wow, I didn't even know this was part of our deal. And you're like, yeah.
And I think that's another thing that sometimes I try to reground myself when I sit here week over week, and I mean, everyone within our company week over week is learning more and more and more about marketing and the analytical side of it and the data side of it and all that stuff. When you sit down with somebody, you have to treat them as like they're green as they come. Because realistically, they don't care about all that stuff. All they care about are the results that come from it. So a lot of times these marketing companies, like, we had them come in and talk to us. They were talking. This was way before I knew anything about marketing. I'm like, this is so far in my head. You lost me like 30 minutes ago. I've been in like left field thinking about what I'm going to make for dinner. Like, these people, I'm sitting there, I'm like,
oh, they're still here.
How fast can they get out of my office? Because I don't know what they're talking about. And I think back on the companies that we did use, a lot of times it was like a 10, 15-minute sale at most. We're sitting in there bullshit with them about them going to a Royals game or them going to a Chiefs game. We're talking like really nothing about marketing. And then they like showed me like 5 other companies that they've ran with, and this has worked, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, let's roll.
People are going to buy from people they like.
Yeah.
That's most of the time. I mean, 2 of you work at Ford, and I go look at Fords, and one of you is super salesy douchebag, and one's awesome guy that's just genuine, like, hey, how can I help you? I'm going to buy from the guy I like. I mean, it's the same truck at the end of the day.
You don't want
so
the super
what do I care?
salesy douchebag?
No. And I mean, that's probably what you get every time you go to Ford. I don't know. I'm a Chevy guy. But
Shots fired.
Wow.
But anyway, there's just so much communication training people really need day in and day out that you don't get unless you either had a great trainer or coach growing up. But it's something we definitely miss in our school system. I mean, especially public school.
It definitely is.
I had a company pay thousands of dollars for me to go to communication and sales training. And it really wasn't sales training as much as it was just communication training, how to talk to people that think and process things differently than I, and how they talk maybe at a different speed, or they slow down, safe, calm.
They sent us to a training. They're like, you have 2 ears in one mouth. If I can tell you anything in this training, shut up. That was it. He's like, if you take that from it, you learn something.
Yeah. I mean, one of the key lessons I ever learned, is not to paint a seagull in somebody else's picture. There's all kinds of books and there's training programs and, basically if somebody's envisioning a picture, say, of like an ocean view, and you're like, and you walk up and it's your picture. You painted it. It's awesome. It's a gorgeous picture. I'm like, oh, man, it's missing something. And I grab your paintbrush and I just paint in the seagull real quick. I'm like, there, it's better. And then you look at it and you're like, dude, it's trashed. Like, that was my photo. Like, that was my memory. That's how I wanted it to look. And you just ruined it. Now, forever, all you're going to look at is that stupid seagull I painted and be like, this guy's an asshole. Thanks for nothing, dude. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Like, just shut up, listen, help facilitate, don't steamroll.
Ask really good questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of times when we're sitting with business owners too, people that have went to that spot of like, I'm going to open a company, I'm going to do these things. They're visionaries. And I think, I'm trying to remember, I think I was reading the book Rocket Fuel. I think 3% of the population employs 97% of the population. And the 3% are visionaries that can see this grand picture. They can see what's going to happen. Like, I have this vision in my head that I can't relay it to anyone. But if somebody could ever sit down in front of me and sell me on how to get to that vision quicker, I would say yes so fast. Like, and I think that you have that painting that's there. And if anyone can ever sit with you and catch enough of that painting to where you can make that painting better, that's somebody that like is very easily to say yes, to jump on board with you because they have that vision. And I think that just visionary in general, that person is like really not a hard person to sell.
No, and there's different types of people too, so you have to know who you're working with. You have the type of people who are the visionaries, and then you have the type of people who are the strategic minds who are actually like, okay, that's a great picture there, but how do we go from point A to point B?
Integrator. They're the integrator.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. And whenever those two people find each other or you know who you're talking to, it just makes it so easy.
They talk about that, I think it was Ford, McDonald's, Walt Disney. Like, a lot of people don't know that, like, Walt Disney's brother was, like, so involved. And I'm pretty sure it was his brother.
I think so.
And it's like Henry Ford had, I don't know if his brother or some, like, one of his best friends or something. But there's all these people that Henry Ford is the one that had the vision of where it was going to go. And he just spat out ideas, like, 24/7. But you have to have that integrator there that's going to say, hey, we got to keep this thing on track. Like, that's going to work. We're going to integrate it, and, like, we're going to make it happen. But there still has to be a path to get to that spot. Yeah. That if you have 50 trains trying to get to one spot, we're going to try to build railways for all of them. We're not going to make it very far. Now, if we can hone in on, like, two trains, we can probably get it all the way, make it all the way around the world. And I think that's where a lot of those, you have to have both of those.
Yeah, McDonald's is a fantastic example of that. The two brothers that started it, they had the process down so good to where they were the most efficient place. You know, people could come, they could get their food really quick. It was good. It was always the same. Mm-hmm. And then Ray Kroc comes in, and he has a grand vision to take it across the United States and blows it up. Now, ultimately, if you've seen the movie The Founder, you know how it ends. If not, go watch it. But you need both of those people.
Yeah, and that's, somebody has to have a vision where things are going. And, I mean, anybody that works around me can attest to, sometimes they have tried to hone me in on where I'm going, but it's always like, hey, we're going, I promise you we're going somewhere. Like, I promise you that. And I think that you have a lot of that too.
Well, there's some organic education. There's some organic experience that you need to have. If you want to be any kind of leader, entrepreneur, or anything, you need to gain as much experience as you can through life. You need to be open to taking in as much knowledge as you can just from day to day. But then you also need to be smart enough to not think you know everything and go learn from people that also can teach you very valuable life lessons without experiencing those same downfalls, right? You don't want to make the same mistakes. That's why we study history. Now, a lot of people don't pay attention to history, so we just do the same shit all the time. But, you know,
humans
whatever.
Just repeat themselves over and over and over.
Yeah.
The human race.
It's just one of those things, though. If you could get out of your own way, that's something a lot of people struggle with, right? Yeah. Their ego gets built up because they're like, I started with nothing, and now I have X. And whatever X is, they're super proud of it, and that's great. but it could be so much more, or it could be so much better. Maybe you don't realize it. Maybe somebody shouldn't change your vision, but they should also try to get you to open your mind a little bit. Don't let your ego get in the way of all that. Same with salesy. Somebody makes a little money and they're like, oh, now I'm arrogant. And it's like, dude, you're going to ruin it for your sales career going forward unless all you sell to is arrogant people as well.
We talk in the car business, it was like clockwork. If you get a car salesman in, the first 60 to 90 days is like, I mean, it's either 60 or 90 that they hit it every single time. That they would come in, they're super green, and they're going to listen to the managers. And if you're a manager in a car dealership, you've probably done it for quite a while. You've been through sales training. You understand how the sales process works, things like that. So you're doing a guest assessment. You're figuring out what these people are looking for, what their wants are, what their needs are, what their payments look like, where their previous car is financed through. That's giving you a lot about their credit history of what kind of interest rate they had on their last car. You're setting up a car deal before it ever even happens. They're really good about doing all these things, and they sell 20 cars their first month. They sell 21 cars the second month. Then all of a sudden, like, you're just after 60 days, and they're coming in the manager's office, and they're like, well, I know that they want $7,000 for this car, and they quit doing their guest assessment. They quit doing all the things that they're supposed to, and they sell like 6 cars. Yep. Then they're pissed off at everyone besides themselves. I was that person too when I did it. I was like, and that was my exact story of the whole thing. And I was like, I don't know what the problem is, blah, blah, blah. It's like everyone else's fault. And then when you end up taking a step back and looking at yourself and you're like, I was doing well because I followed the steps I was supposed to. And when you follow those steps consistently, every single time, every single car deal is the same.
Like, those steps are put in place because they work.
Exactly.
Like,
those weren't just made up for no reason.
Yeah.
And that's in like sales all the time. And we've ended up like, I have the same kind of vetting type deal with marketing now, where I speak to somebody and I start acquiring a lot of information. And when I'm acquiring all that information, a lot of times a salesperson for a company is doing the exact opposite. They're trying to pitch all their stuff as fast as they can. Most of the time I'm sitting there asking questions. I'm just letting them talk. I'm asking questions. They're giving me all the information I need to actually know what I need to provide for them to actually make a sale. But they're telling me a lot about what they've paid with other marketing companies, what they've seen work, what they've seen not work, that they may have done some sort of marketing that worked before. They just really hated the people they worked with. And a lot of times those are the easiest accounts to pick up. Yeah, we did this and it was working really well, but couldn't ever get in contact with the people, blah, blah, blah. So if you fix that communication gap, all of a sudden we have a new account. Really doing nothing. Like, I didn't even have to pitch what we were doing. Yeah. I'm just saying, hey, we'll do the same thing as those people. We'll just do it. Realistically, we're going to do it better. But then we're also going to have that communication side there that you can text me 7 days a week. My phone's on me all the time. And I don't know. I think a lot of times people are just pretty bad about listening and taking in that full circle. And
well, the communication side is huge, right? And being realistic and not lying to people is huge.
Yeah, I feel like that should be written across like everything, really big on any sales book or anything. Is just like, do not lie.
Well, I mean, you guys could each try to sell me a watch, and you're trying to tell me benefits, features. I'm like, oh, whatever. They both tell time, right? But you
I don't
tell
know,
me,
like would tell me of like these smartwatches do all kinds of fancy
heart
shit.
rate.
I don't even know I don't even know how to use it all.
Yeah, see, you digital boys are weird. I'm old school. Keep it classic. But they all tell time. Doesn't matter. Digital, non-digital, whatever. But you tell me, realistically, my watch can go 100 meters deep. And let's say I dive, and I didn't even tell you that. But you're just telling me a few things about it. Hey, if you get it wet, it's okay. It can do this. Don't take it deeper than that. It will get water inside. You're screwed after that. You're like, oh, dude, perfect diver's watch. It's great. It's excellent. Look at all this crap. You don't know what it means. It's awesome.
I know you're not diving 100. Go for it.
Yeah. And then I go dive, and it's ruined. And I'm like, screw that guy. Like, now I got either a faulty product, which I'm mad about, or I have a salesman that lied to me, and that's BS, because now I just wasted my time dealing with you, and now I'm going to have to waste more time to bring it back because now I'm pissed.
And money.
Yeah. So just being honest is huge, and not, just BSing people is another one. But communication is huge. There was somewhere I was going to go with this, and I forgot what it was now.
It wasn't something on like scuba diving? Because I was.
Oh, no.
Scuba Steve.
You guys want to take a trip?
Yeah.
We can do a podcast from a beach, right? No, the other one was judgmental. You know, you guys were talking, and judging people too quickly is a huge problem in the world today. And one, you could judge the person you're talking to in the sales world because you're saying, okay, in your world, you know your products. You know what they're capable of. So in your mind, you're like, I know what's perfect for this guy. We're going to blow the doors off everything. You need this $10,000 security alarm system. It's going to be great. And it's like,
And Dre said, okay, let's do it.
but you know in your head that if the guy owned that, that's great. But maybe he doesn't have the funding to buy all that great. He just needs this to solve that one little issue. So you're going to overwhelm him and get a steamroll him. But the other side is you judged him because he had a really nice house. But what you don't know is that he just lost his job. So he needs an alarm because he's traveling, trying to get this new job. And that's why he wants to make his house secure, but he doesn't have the money to really buy an $8,000 system. So you're going to lose the sale because you're going to overwhelm him. And really, he just needs the $100 deal to make sure his house is locked up okay while he's gone. And then on top of that, you know, it's just like a lesson I learned. I didn't mention I came from car salesmen. My great-grandpa, grandpa, dad, and uncle, all car salesmen. I would have been fourth gen. Didn't want to do it. I grew up around the car business, knew a lot of sales guys. It seemed kind of slimy to me, but I did meet a lot of really great people throughout my life. But again, it's such a cutthroat market that you see both sides of that. You see behind the curtain, and you may see some things you don't like. I didn't like that. So I stayed away. Maybe that's why I ended up in car stuff and auto tech and all that stuff growing up because I stayed around cars, but I didn't want to do sales. But, you know, I grew up around in a Toyota dealership in St. Joe where the Supras first came out, and there were Supras around. And that's like before Fast and Furious for any kids listening. That wasn't a thing back then. This is the original Supras when they came out. You know, those were cool. That was my dream car, play around. But, you know, I always asked my grandpa, Grandpa, why, after 40 years of 50 years selling cars, why is this guy buying his 6th, 7th car from you? Like, why does he do that? Like, even after he retired, people would still call his personal phone number at his house, trying to see if they could buy a car. I'm like, why are they doing that? He's like, well, I just always treated them fair and took care of them. And when they wanted a trade-in, I would just help them find the best fit for what they wanted. I'm like, that's great. That's awesome. And same with my uncle, my dad. They always had a following. Wherever, they would even switch dealerships over the years. So they didn't even sell the same car. People would call and be like, oh, yeah, you're at Toyota? Cool. I'll buy that. Oh, no, you're at Kia? Sweet. I'll be down in Northtown. I'm going to buy that Kia. Cool. But, like my uncle and I had a conversation once, and he's still around in some of the dealerships here in the Northland. And I remember he and I were talking about it one day, and he said, yeah, there was this one time I was at the dealership, and I can't remember this St. Joe or Iowa. My family's from Iowa. And he was talking about an old dirty farmer had pulled up on the lot, and this guy's at a bucket of a truck, and he gets out in coveralls, old dirty old man, and he's out there, kind of kicking the tires, looking around, and nobody talked to the guy. Nobody from the dealership had checked with him. And he came out, and he's like, hey, did any of you ask this guy, like, can you help him? And like, no, man, that guy's just a tire kicker. Like, look at him. He can't afford nothing. His truck's like 30 years old. It's beat to hell. It's rusted out. No. He's like, are you serious? So he goes out the door. He talks to the guy. Hey, can I help you? And he's like, oh, something along the lines of, I didn't even know if anybody worked here. Like, I'd really want to buy this truck over here. And he's like, okay, well, do you want to go in and talk about like financing or what? And he goes, no, I'll just pay cash. And he reaches in his overalls and pulls out a wad of hundreds. He's like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Sold the truck. It's done. The guy knew what he wanted.
We lived for that shit.
Yeah, he's an old farmer. He knew why he was there. He knew what he wanted. He had the cash. Farmers are smart. People think they're always broke, dumb people because they're still farmers. They're not. These people can survive anything. If there was an atomic bomb, they are the cockroach of the world. They will come out swinging, and they will teach everybody else like how to survive.
In the auto space, we got so ingrained in that like perfect truck market. I'd be at the auction, and I would see some flatbed roll in on like a brand new diesel or something, and I'm the only one that I'm like, oh, that's a perfect truck. I'm buying these new flatbeds and stuff like that, and everyone at the sales like, you're crazy. And I mean, they're working down the city, and I'm like, that truck comes in. I know the guy coming to buy that. Those people we're talking about are coming in, taking on $1,300 payments and stuff like that. A lot of times they're on blue notes with dealers or with farmers, and that or some kid would come in that is in a camo hoodie, jeans, and cowboy boots. Nobody wants to talk to him. Dre and I are zipping out there right out the gate, and they're like, yeah, like, been up duck hunting all day, blah, 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 has a trailer pulling in. They're like, yeah, I'm going to grab that truck. I don't have time to test drive. I'm going to ride check real fast out of our farm account. And it's just like that. Those were the people we thrived on. But it was, you just never judge a book by their cover. And it's, I think we come from a space that we were so accustomed to that just day over day that wasn't like anything unusual at that point. I mean, nothing could surprise me after being in the car business for 3 years with where we were at. I mean, anything, if they came in, I was like, 100% probably believe it.
But you learned a lesson that most people don't learn in a lifetime.
Yeah.
And that's how to quit judging others and just be receptive to what they're going to tell you. You know, get out there and give them a shot. Just talk to them.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing in the nonprofit world, talking to the homeless community. You know, everybody wants to judge them quickly because they're on the street. But just like we talked before the show, I had a lady, middle-aged, black female, very clean, nice clothes, not high-priced clothes, but nice clothes. Met her on the way to meet with city council. She was there and show support for our mission and what we're doing. And come to find out, you know, her rental house was sold out from under her. She was a one-income house, didn't have any kind of money saved up to move to find a different house, but because her house was sold out from her, it basically made her homeless overnight. But if anybody had looked at her and seen her like in a food line or with a group that it is known for homelessness and they're trying to get help, you would just judge her quickly and write her off that she's worthless. But why? Did you talk to her? She had a job. She still has a job. She's working right now. Maybe she's riding the bus or maybe she's driving. Does it matter? No, she's working. She is all there. Her mind's all there. She's not a drug user, alcohol user. Why write her off? Like, hell, that's somebody I would want to hire today who's all there, educated even.
Yeah.
She just got in a bad spot quickly that...
I don't think people realize how fast people can end up in a bad spot. And I think so many people are quick to assume that they know someone's story, that no one knows someone's story. I have a story. Dre has a story. Logan has a story. You have a story. Everyone's story is different. And you don't know what that story has led up to where someone is at now. And I think we are also talking about how we grew up down the River Market area. And at that point, I was never someone like my dad would we'd drive by homeless people, stuff like that, holding a sign. And we were down the River Market one day, and my dad would give us money to go buy lunch for the homeless people down there. And I mean, we're probably 13. Dre was 11, 12 at the time. And meet one of the guys, and I mean, he had lost his wife and his daughter, and he had no one else. So he's like, I have no drive to work. He goes, I have no drive to do anything at this point. He goes, I have money. He goes, I have money, I can get food here and there. But he's like, that's somebody that if you would looked at, 100 people could not have guessed that story. And I think 100 people would have sat there and assumed his story. Guy didn't do any drugs. Guy didn't do any, didn't drink. He did the same thing every single day. And he's like, he goes, the only two things that mattered to anything in my life are gone. I think when things like that happen, people are just so quick to assume and don't assume what someone's story is.
You got to quit judging him. You got to give him a new reason to push and find a new drive.
Yeah.
Same thing for people that could be in a business that maybe it's having a hard summer or a hard year. Maybe it's hard 3 years, whatever. Give them a new reason to push forward and create that new drive. You know, that could be marketing. That could be like, hey, you know, you had great food. You still have great food, but nobody knows you exist anymore. Maybe your people are older and dying. Literally, your customer base could be dying off from age.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do the younger people know that you have great food? Do they even know it? No, I don't. All my customers have been coming here for 40, 50 years. It's like,
Let's do the math.
Yeah. Well, what about all these 20, 30-year-olds that have never been here? Like teenagers, kids that are going to be coming up next generation. Like, talk to them, market to them, tell them. Mm-hmm. Same with the guy. You know, the guy lost everything that meant something to him, but that didn't mean his life was worthless or over. Like, maybe he just needed a new drive. Like, hey, why don't you maybe talk to other families who've lost their kids and spouses? Maybe, become a counselor. Maybe help them.
Which I think that sometimes leads into solving a much bigger problem than yourself. And I think, we were talking about your non-for-profit before this, that there's so many vets out there and things of that nature that you can help with and do, and that's we want to get involved with all that also. And it's, I don't know, I think sometimes you're right on like business owners not understanding that drive side. They don't understand I don't know what it takes to push that next spot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, we've kind of talked about this before, but all my businesses or interests are things that aren't going away. Nonprofit, helping somebody in a bad situation in life. Our two missions are actually for Merging KC are solving homelessness and restoring green spaces. Both are never going to go away. We're always going to have an affordable housing issue in the country. We don't have to. We could try to work on that, but getting everybody to understand it in numbers is a hard thing to really educate. It's going to take a while to teach that, but that's never going away. The knife company I became an investor in for Sniper Blade Works, awesome company, great guys. Knives are never going to go away. I mean, not in a world I can imagine unless we all become weird powder puff society. I don't know. Knives aren't going, whether it's in the kitchen or in the real world.
It's kind of happening right now, just I don't think it's happening in Missouri. So.
Well, the first time somebody hands me a foam knife, I'm going to tell them to shove it. But anyway, we're going to have knives, right? Bars, unless everybody in the world just quits drinking, is a business that when people are excited, they're celebrating, they're drinking. Economy's good, they're drinking. When the economy tanks, people are depressed or they're struggling, they're drinking, they're having a good time. Now, I mean, obviously that also comes
our
with
drinking here is always celebratory, so.
Well, yeah, we're having we control our drinking. Some people, though, honestly, in the bar business, you also comes with the responsibility. You have to watch out for your regulars. Your people that may be on a slippery slope and they're drinking too much, you got to help protect too. You want to make sure they're not over drinking and they're not, dragging themselves down. So there is responsibility there. But there's society will drink when the economy's up or down. It's going to happen. It's like a hospital. It's always there's always going to be a need. Security firm. Security's not going away. Privatizing of police department or policing, that's a huge thing happening in the country. It's going to happen. You're going to pay for security. You're going to have nobody to call half the time. I mean, that's just a scary reality that's happening, and some people are learning that lesson.
You mean I can't call the Ghostbusters?
Could call the Ghostbusters.
Still haven't got their phone number.
Yeah. But, I mean, calling for, like, a noise complaint or calling for something silly. We hear about people calling 911 because their neighbor put a gun in their face, threatening to shoot them. And then when they call 911, the dispatcher's like, oh, did they pull the trigger? Did they shoot anybody? No. Okay, we're not coming. It's like, so at what point do the police show up? Well, do they have anybody available? Are they blacked out? So is there a million calls coming out right now and they don't know how many people to help? They're prioritizing the calls as fast as they can. So, I mean, the whole the neighbor situation, that was a real one down in South KC. We got a call. The business wanted to hire security because somebody was walking down the hallway in their apartment going to their unit, and their neighbor was super intoxicated, pulled a gun and put it in his face because he didn't like him, said he was going to shoot him. So the guy scrambled, got in his unit real fast, locked the door, called 911, and because he didn't get shot in the face, they're not coming. So it's like, at what point? So if he did get shot in the face, are you telling me if he lived, he's supposed to try to figure out how to call 911 with a hole in his face? We're coming to a society where it's like, okay, we either need to support our police departments and give them adequate budgeting, or you got to find common ground where security is going to be half of what you need to have and police is for the major crimes. Let them focus on the huge issues. I mean, that's where we're getting to society. So, but all the businesses I'm involved with aren't going anywhere. They're all things that are going to be around forever. And that's what most people should look at now. If you're betting your home, your farm, everything on creating a cupcake company, and you're going to build it.
I love some good cupcakes.
I mean, I love cupcakes.
Target audience right here.
But, let's say you go build cupcakes, and you're like, okay, and I'm going to build this whole company, and I'm going to put it in Greencastle, Missouri.
I don't know where that's at.
I don't know where that's at.
Right. So now you just created your dream job.
Logan, do you know where that's at?
Okay, so it's northern Missouri, centrally located, right? I have family there. Great people.
Population
maybe
of 8.
Yeah.
It's actually my entire family.
We have our own city. No, but maybe there's a couple other people there, but how many?
There's a couple other people.
How many cupcakes do you got to sell to keep a cupcake business alive? So you probably just destroyed your dream by opening in the wrong location, wrong target market, wrong everything. There's just not enough people there to support your business. So you have to figure it out. Like if your dream is this, maybe keep that day job, but go open your business as well and find a way to be semi-absentee so you still have a full-time income and you're doing your business. But don't forget like, the marketing aspect.
I jumped both feet in full speed. I went for it.
You're either going to come back up to sea level or you're going all the way to the
I
bottom.
said we were going to take this ship to the moon or is going straight to the bottom of the sea. One of the two.
Yeah.
So with, 4 businesses?
Right
now.
One's an investor, yeah.
Where do you see these 4 businesses in the next 3 years? And what can you do differently to make those businesses more successful in 3 years?
I mean, for the security market, we're already doing what we want to do. We don't want to be the biggest. We just want to be one of the better firms. What that means is a firm that can charge higher rates but deliver better quality. So one thing we do is really try to invest in our staff, which is something in the security world never really existed. It maybe did if you were like a military contractor, that kind of security. But as far as like your day-to-day security guards, you see armed guards, 85, 90% of our companies are armed guards. So Class A commissioned here in Kansas City, Missouri. Basically, we want to reinvest. So we have health, dental, vision. We have Aflac for supplemental. We have a 401k with a paid match. We have vacation time. Our vacation time starts at 1 year. So you got to be with us a year. But instead of like trickling in vacation where you earn a little bit every time you get a paycheck, we just give you a full week paid right out the gate when you hit 1 year. So you have like benefits,
Don't be trying to poach all my peoples like this.
Right?
He's like, that's so weird. I brought over a few things for y'all to fill out.
You want to sign this?
Free guns.
Oh, now they're all
like
sold.
free guns, yeah.
But we just want to be one of the better firms. It's the same thing with, the bar. We're not trying to be the biggest bar. We only have so much square footage to work with. But if we can keep the house full or that target market or target number there regularly, we don't need to be a full-on club with 10,000 people a week visiting. We don't care about that. We just want to supply a service to the nearby neighborhoods and the people that are our regular customer base. So the main thing we want to do, again, is create a good environment that's not, like, I really push my staff. Like, don't leave a mess of crap just piled up in the corner in the bar. Like, don't leave stuff laying around because you're starting to create a different feel and vibe in the bar, right? We want to host an environment that has all these things. It has shuffleboard, darts, pool. We have an awesome shop menu. We have a few food items, but nothing crazy. But the bar needs to be cleaned every night. So if I'm the first customer the next day, I'm not walking into a bathroom that's disgusting or a mess. It's no longer my space when I see it that way. If I walk in and there's crap just piled up in all the corners, like some weird dive bar that you don't want to go to, I appreciate dive bars because I was raised in one. So those are fun spaces for me. But if it is piled up with too much junk, it's cluttered. My vision's now cluttered. There's a seagull in my picture. So same thing we talked about. Like, don't clutter my vision. But if I can provide a bar, a nearby tavern that's cool vibe, very neutral, people come in and it's their space. Like, that is my home bar. This is great. I'm a pool guy. Cool. Just because you play pool doesn't mean Dane showing up is going to give a shit about pool. Maybe he's a dart player. Maybe he doesn't even play games. Maybe he's like, I'm here for the drinks and the girls. What's up?
What's
What he's definitely there for the drinks.
So you have to try to cater to that entire crowd. Now, you obviously want to rule out troublemakers and certain groups like hate groups or things like that for sure. But my job as a bar owner is just to provide an awesome neutral place that becomes your space. And it'll be your space every week that you come in. The nonprofit, my biggest goal there is to solve our homeless needs here and then restore all of our green spaces. So restore our parks to what they were meant to be the day that they were founded. A lot of those are just overrun, whether it is trash dumping, homelessness. The parks just need new equipment or new paths or biking trails or whatever it is. Like, let's make that happen and bring it back because we want to get people outdoors. Because if all you do is sit inside every day and listen to podcasts and play video games, you're only so
we
cool.
aren't saying listening to podcasts are bad. Listening to podcasts are very good.
We
So,
unplugged
listen-
the PS5
So,
for
yeah.
this.
So the deal is unplug the video games, listen to your podcast, but hit the mountain bike trail at the nearest park. Get outdoors a little bit. Get some fresh air. There's so many things to listen to and take in. And again, being receptive to advice, podcasts with great information or eye-opening ideas, like those are things people need to be doing. So if our nonprofit can clean up those green spaces and provide a neutral ground for you to host a kid's birthday party, you're not showing up to a biker gang sitting on all the picnic tables hanging out. You're showing up to an awesome place that you can make your own. Put up some balloons, bring out a cake, bring out the kids, piñata, whatever. Have a good time. Again, neutral ground. Take care of it, and it'll provide for decades to come for all kinds of people.
Yeah, I like it.
I'm ready to go now.
Me too.
Yeah.
Where are the balloons at? Where's the cake? I was sold at cake. I was sold on the cake.
I'll bring cake. You bring your gloves. I'll bring the trash bags because you got some cleaning to do first for some of these places.
So you're making it happen on everything you're doing. In like one sentence, young entrepreneurs, I think that's a big thing that we watch a lot on is I like watching the younger space come up and make a name for themselves, and which realistically we're a very young marketing company in the space. We don't have anyone over the age of 30. I have one of my high school friends, Cody.
He's peeking around.
He's peeking around. He'll make a debut one of these times, but he's like old as dirt, so different story. But besides that, we're a very, very young marketing company. And what would be like one sentence if you could tell Houston 10 years ago, 15 years ago, of like that one thing that would help you out tremendously in business now?
Mine would be pretty easy. It'd probably be learn how to manage money and how to use it correctly, and keep your mind open to opportunities and ideas. Don't think because this is your dream today, that's going to be your dream tomorrow, because that's not true. Just like right now we're in talks with a franchise out of North Carolina. Same thing. I'm going to be there in 2 weeks. Girlfriend and I are meeting with the owners of that franchise, the people that founded it. There's 80 locations. We could be 81 in Kansas City in a couple months. I never said, hey, I want to open a restaurant. At one point I said, hey, I want to open a club. When I was 19, I was like, yeah, I'm going to open a club one day. Hell, I had never even spent time in a club at 19. It just sounded cool. Like all the beats and the music and the laser lights and all that. I was like, yeah, cool. But all that's wrong. My roots go back to a dive bar. So going into a dive bar, now I own a tavern, or what could be close to what's a dive bar. It's kind of a little better than a dive. It's cleaner. Yeah. We actually clean our toilets. But
place is very clean.
But being open-minded is probably the one thing I never saw coming. I did not see it, and I was at least 30 before I saw it coming. I was in my 30s. I never even thought about it until then. I just kept seeing a vision, and that was my vision, and I kept working towards it. And yeah, I kept chasing money, kept doing this and this. But I didn't realize I was wrong. I was wrong every turn. I always thought sales was stupid and gross and just shitty. Like, I didn't want to be a salesman. I didn't realize until I was in sales for years that there's so many other good salesmen out there. There's people that are very genuine that want to take care of people. They're not there to just get rich quick and like screw people. They're not at all. And you don't know it until you get in that market. And it took me getting out of, actually I was just tired of looking at laptops or computer screens, trying to work from the office while on work comp because somebody had hit our patrol car head on and I got hurt real bad. They didn't have insurance, so it became work comp. Work comp put me on light duty restrictions where I had to sit at the office. I was like, there's got to be more. There's got to be something I can do to get off my butt. I'm used to working the streets. I'm used to getting at least 3 fights a week. I'm used to whooping on somebody who's trying to whoop me first.
These knuckles are getting soft.
Yeah, there's got to be something. I've gained 20 pounds in a week. There's got to be something I can do to get off my butt. And when they said, go help the sales team, I, was terrified. I was like, no way. And that's when that cold calling started. The door knocking, calling people started. I'm like, oh my God, this is awful. This is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. Like, why did that lady hit my car head on? This is stupid. Like, why am I paying the price twice now? One, I'm hurt. 2, now I got to deal with this crap at work. This is awful. Like, I'm an idiot. Like, I was ready to quit and go find something else. But they didn't tell me that when I got into sales, this would have been, I got hit in July. This would have been by August. I was so bored 3 weeks later that I was like, I got to do something. So August August is now our target market at the time. They said, hey, go grow our patrol team. Find places where they could use patrol services for security. It's apartment complexes, industrial, commercial complexes, things like that. So I got started, and I'm talking to all these property managers. I mean, every day, just going to every apartment complex I could find. I'm on Google Earth, like looking for stuff I didn't even know existed. And I'm stopping in. They're like, oh, great, thanks for leaving me information.
I'll get back to you.
Yeah, kind of. I'm like, what the hell, man? And then some people are like, just shoot me pricing. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll get send you pricing. Yes, I'm going to get this. And then I don't hear anything. I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, I must be the worst sales guy ever. Nobody told me it was budget season for multifamily properties. Nobody taught me anything. Nobody at our company even knew about budget season. They didn't even know. So they sent me to do this job. Nobody trained me. Nobody helped me. Nobody offered to help at all. The sales manager left about 3 weeks into me starting in sales to help him. He left. He went to work a gun range, getting $110,000 a year to run a gun range at Powder Creek out in Kansas. So I'm there by myself. So I'm like figuring it out. Well, January 1st came around, New Year's. Party with my friends. I was off. Turn around and come back. And I don't remember if it's the first, second, third, whatever, that 2014. So 2015, January, beginning of it. Whenever the office opened back up, I came in. I had emails. Every day for 2 weeks straight, every business day. So 10 business days straight for 2 weeks. I either closed one contract or two every single day because all those people I'd met with during budget season were all closing deals. And I was like, holy shit, you mean I just got like a $20,000 a year raise? I was like, this is awesome. Like, let's go. Like, I was so happy at the time. But I didn't know. Nobody trained me. Nobody helped me. I didn't know I was stumbling through it. Had no idea. I thought I was the worst guy ever. And turns out it just wasn't my time. The hard work hadn't paid off yet, but it was coming, and I didn't even know it was coming. Nobody called me and said, hey, we're going to go with you in 3 weeks. Nobody said that.
That's something that in like sales, it always comes at some point. That consistency is huge. Keeping after it. People are going to tell you no. And I was watching a deal that the guy was like, you'll close. He's like, if you go out and close one account at $1,000, you've talked to 10 people, he goes, that's $100 a person. Even though 9 of them told you no, that's $100 a head. Because you have to start looking at it like that. But don't be focused on the no's. Don't be focused on the yeses. Focus on them as a whole. And I think just as young entrepreneurs, everything, so much of taking those opportunities, always keeping your eyes open, going after everything that's always there. And realistically, anytime that step's ever available, take it. And I think that's 100% of the opportunities. You've always taken that step when the opportunity's there. And that's huge. And all of us want to thank you for coming on. We're going to plug all of your links below. You're going to have to send me the link for the knife company.
Yeah. Come visit us. Buy our stuff.
We'll plug all your links below, everything. Once again, huge thanks for you coming on. Thanks for Logan. Thanks for Dre, as always.
I'm always here.
And this is what I live for. That's the M3 podcast, so key Ricky.
Thanks for listening to the M3 Podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Want to learn more? Check us out on Instagram at Moss Marketing Group, on Facebook at Moss Marketing 58, or on our website at mossmarketinggroup.com.